Hi, everybody, and welcome to Friday Night Flock Talk. I'm Robin Sullivan of the Leather Elves, and I always love what Nick does. For those of you that don't know Nick, Nick is who makes me look decent. I was going to say good, but decent every Friday night. So, first thing I've got to do is the usual reminders. For those of you that listen all the time, for those of you that are new, these are our weekly reminders. Please like the Leather Elves on Facebook. That way, you'll get notifications. You can check the Leather Elves Facebook page and for surprise sales, things like that, and pop up events. And follow the Leather Elves on Instagram. And you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hi, Diane. Nice to see you. So this topic, I got to be honest with you. When my guest first approached me, I wasn't sure if it was a scam. I don't know, but I don't think it is. So I have the pleasure tonight of introducing all of you to Chris Dooley. How's it going, Chris?
It's going great, and the jury's still out. I could be an absolute scam. You should be very careful.
Great. Honestly, that did run through my mind when we first talked. I was like, and then and in the time in between, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be fine. And then today, I had like a panic attack. I was like, he's gonna come, this is gonna be total just I'm going to look like an idiot. So hopefully that's not gonna happen. I am gonna read your bio and hopefully that'll come off okay, but I do have to read it because I haven't memorized it. So Chris Dooley has been involved with aviculture for 20 plus years. He holds a bachelor's of education and a graduate certificate in cybercrime. He is currently the admin or moderator for over 30 parrot related groups on Facebook, where he is focused on accurate screening. The important concept of protecting people by making sure the scammers never get in the group to make contact. He currently works with two macaws and a harlequin and a scarlet. He also has a lesser self-requested cockatoo and a blue crown conure. They are all recycled rescue birds. So, welcome, Chris. It's nice to
Thank you
have
for
you.
having me. Thank you for having me.
I wanted to just kind of make my statement at the beginning here that why this topic. So people are like, oh no, it's all good. I get my birds from reputable places, blah blah blah, and it's something that I really felt that people needed to hear. It's something that if people aren't thinking about it, hopefully they will after they hear this. So I know you're dealing with it all the time.
If people are really confident and they understand the scams and they know what to look for, they need to be telling other people. So for those people that really sort of have it all together, they can become their own advocates in a way. I especially want to reach out to breeders and explain all this stuff to them because I often tell breeders it's not my money that they're stealing, it's your money that they're stealing. Because I've had a lot of breeders say, oh, yes, after someone was scammed out of $4,000, they couldn't afford a real parrot anymore. And,
Yeah.
that's money that's sort of coming out of the breeder's pocket in a way. Um, the other thing that I have a couple of concerns that I'll go over. I'm sorry, I'm just stealing your show immediately.
No,
Um,
go for it.
the first concern is when I'm screening people, when people are getting into the groups the first time, you wouldn't believe how often I look at a profile and I see one of those cool pictures from a cruise ship or the Bahamas or New Orleans or Tampa, Florida, with people holding birds on the street. And that's a common sort of street vendor sort of thing in certain places. I've met these people in Florida and I've met these people in New Orleans. And people have that remarkable experience with extremely tame birds and they get to pay $5 for a photograph. And it is almost clockwork that they get back home and within a week they decide, yeah, I'm sort of interested. That was pretty cool. Wonder if I can get a parrot. What those people don't research is parrot scams. Some of them start researching parrots, but very few of them actually start researching parrot scams and the different ways that they can lose their money. And for the people that really have it all together and understand this pretty well, if you see someone getting into the hobby for the first time, you need to immediately say, hey, have you researched parrot scams? Can you watch a few videos and do some research? because you really need to understand that before you can really get into the hobby and understand whether you're looking at things that are real or fake.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Second,
absolutely agree. And I think, well, just a word on that. As far as that research and is concerned, I mean, that's good advice anyway, just out of the gate. But I think with everything that's going on, and I feel like it's definitely ramped up, in the last couple of couple of years, because more people are looking into getting pets, and I think, so it's good advice either way. That the research piece. So
the second disclaimer that I'm going to add at the beginning of this video is I cannot discuss all the little exact details I use to screen people in and out of groups. Um, because since this is going to be a public video, I have to assume that some of the scammers are going to use this for research. And with anything you put out there, you have to assume that. So I'm going to give some general things that I think could help people defend themselves. But if someone is moderating or adminning a parrot group or wants to come to me for help, they're welcome to message me and I will give them plenty of specifics about what to look for. But the purpose of this discussion is really sort of to give general knowledge. And it's usually mentioning things that I don't think they can defend against. I'll mention things that they can't change that much and still run an adequate scam. But there are more specifics. I can sometimes be screening over 100 people a day, and I've developed a pretty quick system of how to spot people that are real and how to spot people that are fake. There's some easy tells, um, and then there's some more complicated tells. But if someone wants that sort of detailed information, they're going to have to message me specifically. And they need to expect me to ask them some questions because I don't want to give that information away to the wrong people. The minute we say something in a video about scams, there's a scammer that's trying to figure out how to get around that. And we'll discuss that as we go through.
And I think too, Chris, that moderators of bird groups, I think it's a great, you offering that is a wonderful resource for them, because I know sometimes people don't take moderating a group as seriously as they need to. And, having been part of very large avian organizations myself, I know that that can be a problem. I've sat on the board of directors for a couple of organizations, and we really had to look at screening people and who was getting in and were they getting in for the right reasons. And I think all those things need to be considered as well. And if someone's a moderator and they're not confident in what they're using as a screening tool, I think that's wonderful that you've offered that to them. So thank you. So I guess the first question, Chris, is what is a parrot scam? What's it all about?
So a parrot scam in the world of cybercrime is basically a confidence scam. If you had talked to me 20 years ago and said, oh, there'll be a time when you just order stuff off the computer all the time and you put in your credit card number and all that stuff just shows up to your house, I would have said you were crazy coming out of the 80s. But now that's pretty common. No one thinks twice about ordering stuff off Amazon, ordering stuff off Etsy, ordering stuff off their own some other business pages. They'll put in their credit card and the stuff arrives in 2 days and it's great. And what parrot scammers are taking advantage of is that level of confidence in the system. They're depending on you not to do very much checking, and they're depending on you to trust them like you trust Amazon. A couple of things to remember about parrot scams is the laws will not help you. And I say that because we're in the USA right now. If someone scams me on Amazon, then I have some recourse with Amazon. Or if someone scams me on Etsy, I have some recourse with them. Most of the scammers that are running these scams are outside of the USA and outside of countries that the USA has close relations with. Many of the scams are coming out of West Africa, and they are not the least bit worried about our laws. We're not going to threaten them with the FBI. We're not going to threaten them with law enforcement. If you go file a report at your local police station, it's not going to do that much help. the other thing is refunds are also not something that happens all the time. If you do PayPal and they tell you to mark the friends and family button, PayPal it
You get a little bit of internet interference coming through for you.
okay.
You have to repeat that there.
Okay. If you're using PayPal and you click on the friends and family button, it can take a long time to get your money back. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it can be time consuming. With any of those others, Zelle or Cash App or MoneyGram, those systems were not developed to buy merchandise. There is no refund system built into those, and some of them are attached to your bank account. Now, I've heard that if you go to your bank, then you can, if you catch it early enough, they can sometimes undo some transactions and you can get some of your money back. Do not depend on that. I have known lots of people that lost a lot of money and their banks couldn't do anything about it. And with PayPal, I think it's sort of a roll of the dice if you click on friends and family, whether you're going to get your money back or not. Now, if you buy a gift card and take a picture of the back of it and send it to them, you've lost that money forever. You're not going to get that back. If you send them a credit card number, the last person I heard of that sent them a credit card number lost $10,000 within 24 hours. So they just emptied her.
And I think too, we've also become fairly confident in Facebook. I can tell you, I ordered a sweatshirt a couple weeks ago, and it came, and the sleeves are sewn inside out. If I were cool and I thought that was all right, it'd be okay. But and going through PayPal to try to get a refund, it was we'll deal with the company first. So okay, we'll try to deal with the company first. Dealt with the company, they offered us less than half of the money back, and then it was okay, we'll give you your money back, but you have to send it back to us. And then once we get it, we'll send you the money. Really, I'm going to trust you after you sent me a shirt with sleeves on backwards? No. But I think, we've all become so used to, I'm scanning Facebook. Oh, it's a cool ad. I'm going to go for this. And it's just that comfort level that we don't want to lose entirely, but we've got to be a little more cautious.
Yeah, there's really no protections on Facebook, and of course, Facebook takes no responsibility for any of those things at all. And we can talk about that later. But the other thing that we were talking about right before the call started is the scams do not have a pattern necessarily of how much money they're asking for at the beginning. So some people will say, "Oh well, it wasn't $1,000 scam. They were offering to ship me the parrot for free. All I had to do was pay $100 in shipping." And I always tell people, that's how it starts. It could be $1,000, it could be $100, it could be $50. Some people treat it sort of like gambling. Say, you know what, I'm not sure if this is real or not, but goodness, getting an African gray parrot for $100, that'd be a pretty good deal if I could score that. And I've talked to those people online sometimes, and I was like, "Look, if you've got $100 you just want to give away, you can send it to me."
Yeah.
It's one of those things where if you think that gambling enough times, eventually you will hit that person that is truly interested in giving their parrot to a complete stranger for $100. You're going to lose a lot of money a lot of different times. But more often than not, the scam starts with $100, and then once they have you on the hook, they're going to ask for more money, and then ask for more money, and then ask for more money. So,
I mean, it's the old story, the old adage that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And
yes.
and I think that's just something that we need to remember. So all right. So now we know what we're getting scammed, how we're getting scammed. So are there like telltale signs? Are there things that we need to be looking for?
There's some obvious ones, and of course, your great video guy flashed it up a few minutes ago. If someone looks like they're an international profile, or promises you international shipping, that is an immediate red flag. With this, now sometimes page transparency is perfect and it tells you where that person is located or where the page is located. It is not 100%. It is missing on a lot of pages. I think it's missing on my page. It doesn't say that I'm in the USA yet. I'm not even sure where Facebook even gets that information. But sometimes it's on there and you can see it. If someone says, oh, well, I'm in this other country, but no worries, I can send you a parrot. Look, the laws around shipping parrots internationally are very convoluted and complicated. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm saying no one does it for a pet. I know breeders that do it if they're interested in getting into a new species or they need a new bloodline. Zoos can do it. It does happen, but no one is going to do it for a bargain price, African gray, shipping it from Cameroon. That's just not happening. So that's a red flag. The other thing that I see on a lot of parrot scams is they're promising parrot eggs for sale. Now, once you see that, it's a scam. The whole darn site's a scam. It's not like, oh, well, I think the rest of it is okay, but that part is obviously a scam. I'll go through the reasons slowly. Yes, there's the picture. So those are not parrot eggs. Those are chicken eggs and turkey eggs and ostrich eggs. Parrots only lay 4 eggs a year, or 3 to 5. I mean, it's different for different species, but it's a small number of eggs. And usually only once a year you'll get 3 to 5 eggs. So there is not an overabundance of eggs. All the people that have macaws under the sound of my voice are not throwing away eggs constantly like people who have chickens do. We're not frying them up. We're not wondering where to ship all these extra eggs. So there is absolutely no economic reason why someone would sell them for $200 on Facebook, especially since the baby parrots are worth so much. You're not going to see an African gray that's worth $5,000, but someone is selling the eggs for $150 a piece, but you have to buy 6 of them. That's always the scam, is you can't buy just one. You have to buy a pile of them. The eggs, and I've talked to breeders about this, the eggs are extremely fragile. They're almost impossible to ship. So, I've heard of breeders trying to move an egg from a nest to an incubator, and they lose it during that distance. They jiggle it the wrong way, or the temperature goes wrong, and all the things fly out the window. It's very, very difficult to move these eggs. It's nearly impossible to transport them, and of course, it's impossible to transport them internationally. And I will go further to say, most of us would not be able to raise a baby parrot because it's super difficult. It's not like a baby chicken where you can just set some food out and they just eat whenever they want to. The breeders I know are up all the time. You can message them at 3 a.m. and they will respond. They're up every 3 to 4 hours feeding baby parrots during certain times of the year. If you have a job, or if your spouse has a job, if there's not someone sitting at home, and if you're not willing to stay up all hours of the night, you are incapable of raising a baby parrot anyway. I couldn't possibly do it. I like sleep too much. So
the hard part, Chris, the other thing that about the eggs, and so for just a moment you go, well, okay, so maybe the breeder just doesn't want to go through that process. So there are these little things that come up in your head that you just, I noticed Sarah Brabs just signed on, and Sarah will absolutely attest to the fact that she's up all hours of the night feeding babies. But there's that little piece of you that goes, well, maybe the breeder just has too much on their plate, and so they're going to sell some eggs just for a second. And then you go, wait, no, there's that little voice in the back of your head that's going, maybe it is true. And I think that's where people get sucked in.
The thing that makes it worse is that people ship chicken and turkey and quail eggs all the time. Those are completely different kind of eggs. And I actually heard of someone go to the grocery, buy some quail eggs, put them in an incubator, and get some of them to hatch. And those hadn't been cared for in the least. They had been refrigerated. So, some of these eggs for other species like chickens or quails are much more durable. Mm-hmm. And if you get on some chicken websites or some quail websites on Facebook, there's people trading eggs around constantly. And those people decide, hey, wait a second, why should I be selling $5 eggs when I could sell $150 eggs? and they always join up with some groups and they say, hey, I got to get into this. I can buy some $150 African gray eggs and sell the babies for $4,000 a piece. That would be awesome. And yeah, those are the people that can get caught really easily, not know what they're doing.
Yeah, we have an aviculturist friend who was a guest a few weeks back, Greg Sersel. Sarah mentions him, and that he did indeed hatch Trader Joe's quail eggs. So yes, that is definitely possible. But Sarah, I don't think we're going to go to Trader Joe's and get any, African gray eggs or anything like that. And I absolutely, it's just, it's that too good to be true, but there's that little piece of you that just wants it to be true. And so
Right.
you go for those kind of things. So I don't know.
And of course,
Go ahead.
the third thing is that the sales happen very quickly. If you have bought a parrot from a breeder, you understand that it sort of takes a while to do it. Most authentic parrot breeders will take reservations for birds that are in the nest but unweaned. And then there's a waiting period. And sometimes there's a waiting list, that's several years long for specific species. So I always tell people, if you look at a page and nothing is marked sold, that's weird. Or if you look at a page and the breeder's like, oh, I can send this parrot to you tomorrow, that's sort of weird. Most breeders, they sort of are playing this game several months in advance. And I've known people that, if they're really interested in birds, when I talk to them later, they say, yeah, that process took a few months. I had to find a breeder, and then we had to talk about, and most breeders want to sort of know where their birds are going. It's not a quick thing. They want to know who you are and whether or not you'll be able to do this, whether or not you'll be able to take care of these parrots. And they do quite a bit of educating. So if you think, oh, well, I should be able to go and just get a parrot, people even who show up in groups do that. I'm just going to show up and I just need a parrot. Well, it's not as easy as you think, and it usually takes a while. And so sometimes I tell people quick sales, or if the breeder is pressuring you, if they say, oh, well, this parrot's going to be gone, you got to send the money today or else, this is going to be gone. This deal's going to be gone. That is not a real breeder. Those sort of things just don't happen.
Yeah, there are no parrot flash sales. It just doesn't happen. And I think, and from my point of view, when I'm working with people who want parrots or people who have just acquired parrots, it's really about spending that month or two learning as much as they can before they get the bird. And I think that's something that is on us as people who want to own parrots, people who do own parrots, to really think about, wow, do I really want a baby parrot that I don't know a lot about? Maybe I've never, there are definitely first time owners out there. And so you got to kind of think about it from that perspective as well. So having to wait it's agonizing, but it's not a bad thing. I would rather wait and know it was coming from someone, who was doing the right thing and who was reputable than just, getting that bird. Sarah says most people need the time to prepare, purchase the cage, toys, food, things like that. And a reputable breeder knows that you need that time as well. So they're not going to push you like that. So yeah, it's a good point, Sarah. Thank you.
Exactly.
So how do people protect themselves, Chris? Just common sense is a good thing, but what other ways can they protect themselves?
We'll start out with the simplest. Buy local if you can. The best way to protect yourself is, even if you're finding a parrot online, is to meet someone in person and exchange money for a parrot. Chances of scamming in that sense are extremely low if you're doing that. Now, just because someone has arranged to meet you doesn't necessarily mean it's not a scam. I have met people that have driven 8 hours to meet someone, and it turns out it was a scam. It's one of those things where the scammers don't seem to really care as much about your time. But the best way to meet is to meet in person. And you should want to do that anyway. You should want to see the bird, get a good look at it, make sure it's healthy and acting right. The last thing you want to do is sort of rush into a relationship like this. I am guilty of finding a bird on Craigslist, as many people do. And when I arrived, the whole
Oh, we lost you there for a minute.
am I back?
You're back. So you got it. So we got to Craigslist. It was like a cliffhanger. So you
Yes.
found the bird on Craigslist, and then
When I arrived, the whole house was full of chain smokers. They had been smoking around the bird the whole time. The blue crown conure was a brown color and was missing a tail. So, I mean, I ended up getting the bird anyway because I couldn't stand the thought of leaving it behind. But I asked the guy, hey, this doesn't look like the picture. And of course, he had used a stock photo. So if just think of my disappointment if I had said, hey, ship this bird to me, and I would have gotten a completely different product than I had agreed to. That bird's doing fine, by the way. It's amazing what a little bit of good care and TLC will do. But it's one of those things where I think to be totally safe, you need to put your eyeballs on what you're buying. As far as Facebook is concerned, if you're messaging with someone back and forth and they're talking about selling you a parrot, a basketball, or whatever, you should be able to hit the video chat button and get on camera with them. It works on any smartphone, it works on any laptop, and it works on any computer where you have a camera. It's super easy and it's free, and there's no reason why people cannot do it. If you call them, even if they've never done it before, all they have to do is answer it like a normal phone call. When I talk about video chatting, I will tell you that the scammers are sort of getting into this a little bit. Not in the way you think. When I talk about video chatting, I want to be able to see the person's face, and I want that face to match the profile. I want to be able to see in the room and know whether it's a dark room or a light room. Because if someone's trying to scam me from overseas, it's probably going to be a dark room. And if it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon here, that's going to be a tell. I also want to be able to see them move the camera and then show me the parrot so that it's not a video of a parrot. It's actually something that's in the room with them. And when I talk about video chatting, all those elements need to be there. I have had lots of scammers that try to show me a video chat of another device that's playing a video. That doesn't count. And they've started doing that stuff. And I've had people say, well, you told me to video chat, and I video chatted, and I saw the parrot, and it was just like the video they sent me on Facebook. Well, of course it was. It was the exact same video. And if you had watched for long enough, it would have looped. I've actually caught that before where the video looped. And I started, yelling and screaming at them because I was like, you just got caught. But I always tell people, if you're not willing to show your face on camera, if you're not willing to have a conversation so I can hear your voice and answer questions back and forth, not willing to move the camera around so I can see the rest of the room, all of that's required if you want to know whether someone's real or not. And all of that is very important.
We've got Sarah. I can see that Sarah, the hair on Sarah, the back of Sarah's neck is standing up, and 90% of her babies are sold via e-commerce. So video chatting, she puts video chatting as a solid solution. It definitely is. And I think, with that close being, people just do need to be careful. But I think, with any scrutiny, they're going to be able to see the difference between what Sarah does and what a scammer does. Because it's, I think there's definitely, there is that person that is a scammer and comes off as all confident and what have you, but there's still going to be, all of us read our bird's body language, or we should be, in order to get that information from them. So we should be pretty good, judges of body language and what's going on. And I think that's a skill that we should put into use if we're buying a bird and we're going through that video chat process. I think it's, it's a skill that we all have or hopefully have. So,
Well,
yeah.
exactly. And I've actually video chatted with someone in Cameroon before that showed me a very rusty cage with 2 African grays in it. Now, you realize that they're native to Cameroon. Those birds fly around down there. So some of them are actually figuring out, you know what, I can do the video chat thing. I can actually have a bird. But what they can't do is they can't show their face, and their accent is unmistakable. They speak French in Cameroon, and so they generally sound like they have French accents, or they might even sound Jamaican, or they sound like they're from another country. They don't sound like they're from America in most cases. The other thing about breeders is I've been very harsh with some breeders, but saying, look, the farther the scam goes into trying to look real, the farther you have to go to continue that process, to continue to be out of reach. Because I've had some breeders say, oh, I'm not going to fool with that stuff. I have a reputation, and I'm going to base all my sales on my reputation. And I say, you've got to do more than that, because someone's going to rip your pictures off tomorrow and be using your reputation against you. So with breeders, it's actually a benefit to them most of the time, because they don't want a lot of visitors in their aviary anyway, because of the risk to contamination. It's actually a benefit for them to sort of get a little bit more tech savvy. Like I said, it's super easy to do. If you want a lesson on how to do it, I will happily video chat with you, and you can get comfortable with it. It's not hard. But with breeders, if someone has talked to a couple of scammers and then talks to a real breeder, they should be able to tell, well, this is a real person. They can sit on camera and answer questions. The internet connection is much better than it would be if someone was trying to talk to me from halfway around the world. So that's one of the things that I tell people. And that the other thing is, for protecting yourself, I say sort of know the market. Prices have done crazy things in the past 2 years. So what scares me the most is someone who just lost a 30-year-old African gray, and they're getting back into the market. Because what do you think they think the bird costs? $500 to $600. That's what they paid for their African gray back in 1970, whatever. And they get back into the market, and those people are grieving already, and they get taken immediately, because they do not understand that the inflation that these birds have gone through, even in the last couple of years, is astronomical. So if you don't sort of get a lay of the land, talk to a couple of parrot stores, hey, what are your prices on these things? And know that breeders might be cheaper, but they're not going to be crazy cheap compared to the stores. There's some differences. And I sent you a few examples of some Google searches, which will actually lead you the wrong direction. Yes, it's on the screen right now. I Googled how much does a hyacinth macaw cost, and the answer came back between $5,000 and $12,000. I would love to find that $5,000 hyacinth macaw. Still looking around for that. Google, being as smart as they are, they actually take all the ads that they can find into account and produce an average. And that average includes the scam numbers, and those prices can be absolutely wrong. And if the price is more than a couple of years old, it can also be absolutely wrong. So when I say know the market, you sort of have to have an idea of what someone is charging for what you're looking to buy. And if people want to discuss it, they obviously can't discuss that on Facebook, because if you put a dollar sign in a group on Facebook, you're risking it all. They'll tear the whole group down just for that dollar sign. So if the best thing to do is start talking to people, talk to breeders, talk to stores, and figure out what the prices are supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a big one, especially now. And then, Sarah, I just want to go back for a second. Sarah said she had a client who called every week to talk to her baby in a video chat, and it was a macaw, and it lasted for several weeks. And I think that's a great policy. If you're a breeder and you can do that, yeah, I think that's something that is, if people have the time to do that, I think it's a great idea. So,
Well,
all right. so we've talked about some of the stuff that you can recognize, you can see, but what about breeders? We've got a lot of breeders that do listen, and sometimes will listen after the fact. Um, what can breeders do besides, making sure that their video chats are the real deal, and what other things can they do to kind of protect their livelihood?
So a lot of breeders have actual websites, and that's wonderful. That gives you a little bit of legitimacy, perhaps, that maybe somebody selling on Facebook doesn't have. But know that website is public and it's going all over the world, and there's very little you can do to defend yourself against that. You have got to watermark the bejesus out of your pictures. Put your website on there, put your phone number across the. I mean, I'm not talking about on the corner where it looks nice, because they'll just Photoshop that out and be stealing your stuff. I'm talking about right across the middle of the page. I've been telling a lot of breeders about this. You can buy watermarking software for your phone free. It's not complicated and it's not expensive. It is a hassle. So that's obviously a very big thing you can do to sort of protect yourself. The scammers can find other pictures. They'll leave yours alone. Also, be very careful of what kind of groups you're posting in. There's a big difference between a private group on Facebook and a public group on Facebook. And all the groups are labeled whether they're private or public. If it's a public group, strangers from all over the world can see everything in that group and steal it if they want to. They do not have to join the group, and you will never see them. They do not have to message you or anything. They can grab any picture they want. If it's a private group, obviously the only people that can see your material are inside the group, and then it becomes a wisdom to know how well the group is moderated. So look at all the posts in the group. Are all of them real? Are all of them real breeders? If and I'm watching what comments Frank is saying that watermarks can still be removed. Yeah, if someone's that good technically, they can probably get around the watermark. Usually, we're talking with people. We're talking about scammers that are just using their cell phone. They don't have complicated, Photoshop software. They just can cut and paste. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh, poorly moderated groups. Yeah, stay away from poorly moderated groups. If you see a lot of scam activity in a group, stay away from it, even if it's private. The scammers are starting to set up their own groups. They've been doing it for a couple of years, and some of the scam groups get very, very popular, and Facebook isn't doing anything about them. So look around a while, join a group, look around a while, and see how well it's being moderated before you share your pictures. On your own page, if you have your own page, you can limit which countries can see your page. Now, that might be a feature that's leaving. I think Facebook has a new design for business pages now, and I have found that setting is much harder to find. I haven't found that setting in the new design of the business pages. But in the old design of the business pages, there was a setting where you could say, I only want people in the USA to see this material, and it absolutely worked. I would tell people, hey, make sure this page is locked down to USA only. It won't save you from everything. Obviously, if the scammer is good enough to use a VPN, they might be able to get around it. But it protects you from most things. I've had all my pictures on a business page for several years now, and I don't see any of those pictures leaking out onto the wild internet and people using my pictures to sell parrots with. So there's some ways to protect yourself. Mostly it's just being very aware of where you're posting your material, and then limiting the audience to that material. If you have a business page, limiting the audience to that. If you have a page, you can sort of watch people very closely. I was talking to a moderator of a parrot page the other day, and I said, this person's a scam, and I pointed to a profile, and I explained the reasons why I thought they were a scam. And I was told, they haven't really done anything wrong yet. They haven't posted anything, so I really don't have any proof. I'm like, they're in your group for a reason. If it's not to try to scam people, it's to try to round up pictures and more material and more language that they can use to scam others. Or they can still message people inside your group. Like if someone posts that they're looking for a parrot, they can go on and message those people. And yeah, obviously not everybody in Cameroon is a scammer, but a lot of scammers are from Cameroon. Yeah, those things can be true at the same time. Thank you, Julie. She's always keeping me straight. But it's one of those things where I'm sorry.
That's why we have Julie around. Julie keeps us on the up and up. She
Exactly. I'm sure it's a country full of a lot of nice people. But I will tell you, it's a country full of a lot of nice people that aren't interested in joining USA Parrot groups. So it's a little bit suspicious when they would try to join USA Parrot groups because there's a whole country, Senegal. And you do not allow
country in Senegal. We lost you. Now you're back.
We lost you at Senegal.
Okay. There's a whole country called Senegal, and I haven't seen anybody from Senegal trying to join USA Parrot groups, and it's right next door to Cameroon. So it's one of those things where no, I'm not saying all people from Cameroon are bad, but it is very suspicious when they try to join a parrot group that says parrots for adoption in USA only. So.
Mm-hmm. And so it's not just breeders that we need to worry about either, or it's the rescues. You just mentioned adoption and rescue, and that's a situation where again it's pulling at your heartstrings. And I think so are you running into a lot of that as well?
The scammers will steal from wherever they can steal from. They don't care. So the scammers will impersonate a rescue. They'll impersonate a store. They'll impersonate a private owner. They'll impersonate somebody with cancer that needs to get rid of their parrot. It's whatever story they can come up with. They'll use it. And so, yes, there are some groups on Facebook that are sort of pretending to be rescues, and they're absolute scams. So yeah, they'll do anything they can. Oh, the picture up on the screen now is one of my favorites. It's parrots for adoption, but they forgot to take out all the pictures of the French bulldogs. So there's a weird looking parrots there. So.
And some of it, I think, we were talking, Chris, before we went online, is that sometimes it's a matter of, I just want a parrot so badly. I'm going to overlook the, French bulldogs. I'm going to overlook the misspelling. And, that's not to say that all people who are selling or, adopting out parrots can spell, because we all have our moments, but we also all have spell check. And if I'm doing something professionally, I'm probably going to use my spell check. And so, I think that's something you and I were talking about, that is important, that you don't, yes, it's a thing that comes from the heart. It's wanting to have that animal in your life. But you've got to go into it pragmatically.
I've written a lot of bad reviews on a lot of scam pages, and one of the reviews that was my favorite to write was, "Don't be fooled by a picture and a promise." That's basically what's happening. And I'll speaking of overlooking language that should be an instant red flag, I'll talk about, there's plenty of pages that are selling puppies that are doing the same thing. My favorite is the 8-month-old puppy that's well trained. I see that all the time. Well-trained puppies, 8 months old. I'm like, well, that's saying something there. And I see sort of the same language, around parrots sometimes too. Well-trained this or well-trained that, or it's one of those things. And I have some I have some very well-behaved birds, but they don't necessarily act well-behaved for everyone. So it's something that I always say, would a real breeder say that? Would a real breeder say talkative African gray babies? Have you talked to a real breeder about when African grays start to talk, for instance, or whether all of them talk? If you do a little bit of research, if you don't just look at the pictures and fall in love with your heart, if you can look at it like a business person or look at it and be a little bit detached, you can spot some of the things that I spot instantly. And it can save you from a lot of save you from a lot of heartache, because I know people that say, I've been looking for weeks. There aren't any real breeders. I'm like, sure there are. You're typing in the wrong thing and you're looking in all the wrong places, and you're bargain hunting usually. And
Yeah.
so I have to, tell people the scammers outnumber the real breeders 50 to 1. The next thing we were going to talk about is, what sort of defense, what sort of help can we get from Facebook or Instagram or any of those social media sites? And the answer is absolutely none. They're helping none at all. In fact, if anything, they make it more difficult for the real breeders and very much easier for the scams on a daily basis. I mentioned the dancing around that we have to do in the groups to try to keep the groups on Facebook. And yet, yeah. So just for an experiment, I sent this picture to you, and it's just sort of an experiment. Oh, by the way, Parrots, Puppies, and Unicorns for Adoption. That's my page. That's one I created at the top just because I was being funny. But if you want a unicorn, you can come to me. I'm offering unicorns. They're very expensive. Anyway, I actually put in Parrots for Adoption. I counted, I think, 94 scam pages and 2 real ones. So it's one of these things where Facebook isn't going to help. Instagram is even worse than Facebook. Instagram has absolutely no protections. If you hashtag macaw, anybody that's looking at that hashtag will be able to see your stuff. You got to be super careful about as soon as Facebook bought Instagram, I left Instagram and I haven't been back. I found that Instagram was even worse than Facebook, and Facebook is horrible. So I always tell people your best protection is well-moderated groups and good connections with people in the industry and people who know. Like I said, using people that you've met as a resource. If you can find a breeder, ask that breeder for a couple of contacts, even if that breeder's across the country. You say, hey, do you know any other breeders? Do you know an agriculture club that I could join that's local? And you can sort of walk yourself from person to person to person and find trustworthy people, because there's plenty of trustworthy people in America that are involved in agriculture. So, that's one of the protections that you can have. But as far as, well, we're going to report them to Facebook and then that's going to fix it. I report people to Facebook all the time, and it's a very disappointing process.
Yeah. And, we've got Chris on here who he had, a bird, I found this bird and they're claiming that it's theirs, and, without that proof, and that's going on as well. And then I know Amanda runs a wonderful rescue, the Charlie Brown Rescue, and that it's happening more and more often. And, people go into it and they don't do that research. It's 3 penguins in a trench coat. It's true, Sarah. It's like, and we look at all these things and we, try to do what we're supposed to do. We try to follow through. And the people that you really need to know are the people that you're meeting at legitimate groups, legitimate clubs, like you said, Chris. And, there are national organizations, there are international organizations where you can come together and meet those people. And if I'm there and I just had someone recently say to me, do you know anybody that breeds blue crown conures? Yeah, I know the best. So I sent them right there. People who want a rescue bird, maybe not a bird that comes from a breeder. And, okay, well, this is the rescue. And, a legit rescue, not somebody who, has no idea and doesn't probably even have any parrots. And, but it's the networking, I think, that's so important. And as a community of aviculturists, and we're all aviculturists, not just the breeders, anybody that has a bird is an aviculturist. And in this community, there are enough people that you can network with. And if you don't know, if you're looking for something in particular, reach out to someone who's got the gray hair, who's been around for a while, and, ask. So there are more and more of us, aren't there? But, and Julie, try to steer people and really, make that connection. And like Lori says, we've got breeders who listen here on Friday Night Flock Talk. And I usually try to point out what people do who are on. But if you go to someone that you know and you're comfortable with the aviculture community and you say, do you know Bill Smith? And they don't know and nobody else knows Bill. It's a good chance that Bill's a scammer. So I think that personal connection is really important.
Yeah, and I always say, send me Bill's profile because people will say, "Hey, is Anna Temple real?" I'm like, "Well, it depends on which profile you're looking at because she has one real one and 5 fake ones at any time on Facebook. The real one has over 20,000 likes. Some of the fake ones have 5. So there are sort of ways to tell. But I always, if people reach out to me and I'll say, look, you need to be looking at this one. And by the way, Anna has a real brick and mortar store and a phone number. So if you're unsure, start there, on the phone, and then you can make sure you're talking to the right place. This can be very, very difficult, and the scammers make it more difficult every year. This year is the first year I've ever found fake stores on Google Maps. I actually found a few fake Parrot stores on Google Maps. So, that was one of the things we used to do is, hey, can you look up the store on Google Maps? If it's a real store, it'll be on Google Maps. And I found some, well, you saw it on Google Maps, but when you looked at the street view, you did a 360 sweep around the area and there was nothing but abandoned buildings there. And so you can actually report that to Google Maps and they'll take them down. But you think if the scammer is willing to go that far, how much further are they willing to go? And they managed to get Google to set up a fake building on the map that wasn't there already. So I say networking. Networking is very safe. And I find a lot of people in the groups, if someone joins the group and asks a very naive question, for instance, I get the egg question about once a week, or sometimes people will say, I want a parrot that talks. One of the comments will be, hey, make sure you update yourself on parrot scams. Someone will realize, hey, this person, if they're just getting into it, if they're going to ask a naive question, let's try to be teachers here, because this is where we could sort of educate them up front rather than have them wander off somewhere to Parrots for Rehoming Near Me on Facebook and lose $1,000 looking for that talkative 9-month-old African gray.
And it's there's some interesting comments coming up here that Nick posted, beware the clones, and that the bird shop in Roseville in California was a victim of that scam. They are a brick and mortar store, and they have been for many, many years, and they were scammed that way. People were, oh no, that's my store. And like Sarah says, her Facebook page says 1234 Parrot Way to keep people away from her aviary. So, I mean, it's kind of that rock and a hard place where, as a breeder, you do need to keep your place safe, and you do need to keep your, if you don't have that brick and mortar store. And so it's, there's that fine line we've got to walk. But again, I think, networking is really the key. Go ahead.
And I'm seeing in the comments, a lot of people in the comments are saying, hey, you can message me. I know Jack. You can reach out to Jack. And of course he's been on this podcast a few times. And I found Jack and realized what great content he's putting out. And I sent him a message saying, if you're real, I need to invite you to 20 more groups. And that's exactly what I did, because he's such a good resource for everything he's talking about. I always try to populate groups with people like that because they have the heart of a teacher. And, the last thing I want is for that person to say, well, I want a parrot that talks. And the first 5 comments to be sort of, hey, you don't even know what you're doing. You should go do some research. Well, probably. But if we are a little bit nicer, we can guide them along and teach them a few things. If we're rude up front, they're just going to leave the group and go somewhere else. And we've sort of missed our opportunity.
Well, that's like Les Cougar, who does the Macaws page. Les does a really good, I know Kathy Timma moderates for him, and they do a really nice job. And one of the things that Les is pretty hardcore about is we're not going to bully people. We're not going to, as moderators, we're going to try to teach people. And he reached out to Jack and I and asked us to do, a course for them. And we did that a while ago. But it's
Mhm.
really that, when I do consulting, if I'm working with someone who's a new bird owner, I tell them right up front, what I say to you may sound fairly judgy, but all of us have made mistakes in the beginning, and the only reason I'm telling you that's not the right thing to do is because I want to see you get better at what you do. I want to see you and this bird have a better life together. So I think, it's really, it is that teachable moment. It's that, not, I'm not going to make anybody feel stupid. I'm going to say, okay, well, they genuinely don't know. And the fact that they're asking is a positive thing. So
Mhm.
yeah, I agree. So, all right. So we know we can't expect anything from Facebook, Instagram, any of them. It's just, we're not getting any help there. So what happens when someone finds themselves the victim of a scammer? Where do we go from there?
The only way to sort of get out of the scam is to block them. People will say, "Hey, uh, the thing I don't like is sometimes people will say, 'Hey, you're a scam, and I figured it out because you offered international shipping in Paradise.'" I'm like, oh, please don't do that. Just block them. Be done. Don't gloat, because we don't want these guys to be any more clever than they are, and they're super clever already. Like if you want to leave the scam, I know some people bait scammers and have some fun and waste their time, and that's fine. But just at the end of it, block them. Don't encourage them with what they could change to make themselves better. But if you're in the middle of a scam, if you've already sent that $100 and you realize that you've been had, the only thing you can do is block that person. If you don't block them, they will message you back every couple of days to say, "Hey, are you still interested in this Parrot? I thought we had a deal. You just need to send me this much more money and we'll do that." It's never going to go away. Even if you call them a bunch of names, they'll message you in a couple of days and ask if you're still interested in the Parrot. As far as getting your money back, going to the bank and seeing if you can undo some things, getting a refund, that's an option. Trying to get a refund on PayPal, that's an option. There is an FBI link for reporting scams. It is nothing more than a database. Now, you can put in your information and put in the information for the scam. I've been encouraging people to do that for a long time, and I can send you that link. It's basically a form to fill out. The FBI is not going to go off and arrest people and get your money back. But I think it's important that they know how often this is happening. They've got to have an idea of how often it's happening and how much money is involved. And maybe they'll start to do something, or maybe they'll start holding these international companies like Facebook a little bit more accountable. I've heard some people reporting them to the local police or the Federal Trade Commission, any of those places. If the scammer had an actual website, you can report them to their hosting company as well. And I've had mixed results with that, because sometimes the hosting company is like, I don't even know who you are, and I don't know whether any of this is true. And by the way, they're paying. You're not paying. So
Yeah.
sometimes you can convince the hosting sites to take down sites, and sometimes you can't. And the other thing you do is, as soon as they go down from one hosting company, they're going to find another hosting company, and they're going to be up in a couple of days. And it's the same with, if you do anything. I have a Facebook scammer group where we do a little naming and shaming. There's only so much good that's going to do. A lot of people, once they realize they've been scammed, they want to post that person's picture all over the place and their name all over the place and say, "This person's a scam." And I say, that person's going to change their name in about 2 seconds. And they're going to change all their pictures in about 2 seconds. And then they're going to be loose again. So we can sort of post some of those as a, hey, this is an example of some scam profiles, and so people can sort of be alerted to those. But the true scammers, the minute they realize they've been had, they're going to change their pictures and their page and their page and their name and whatever else. Like, the pages come and go so often nowadays, it's hardly even worth writing a bad review. They can delete their page and restart it again under the same name in 10 minutes. So, we can do what we need to do. That's why I've been focusing all my time on trying to educate people. With trying to go at the scammers, it's like arrows against the lightning. It's just not going to work. So, if I'm going to teach them that this is a bad place to fish, I have to get rid of all the fish.
Yeah. There are a couple things that have come up in the chat, Chris. One is hiding your friends list. And don't play the games that allow access to your friends list and ask for your personal information. Because we all have so much free time, Adrian, that we got to do that. No, but and then Julie asked if you could speak to, because I know Stephen mentioned a photo with the date and your name and the bird as a way to protect yourself. Julie asked if you could speak to that comment.
I did a video with Kit Rose in Kentucky, and she actually photoshopped a picture where she actually put a sign with the date and the person's name on an existing picture using Photoshop, and it didn't even take her very long. So those sort of things, putting a handwritten note in the picture or using a voice in the picture, the scammers are pretty good with some of that stuff, and they can get around some of that stuff. So I've never had a whole lot of faith in it. Like I said, the defense thing that actually works usually is video chatting, and I haven't found anything else that works on a regular basis. And it was mentioned earlier that if you put the watermark across the middle, there's some people that are good enough to remove watermarks. Yes, I'm not saying it's not possible, but I'm saying that most of these scammers are 16-year-olds with cell phones. They're not as high tech as sometimes we give them credit for. So
yeah,
and
I think too, a lot of times it's not even about how easy it is or how difficult it is. It's that piece that, again, your heart is invested and you're like, oh yeah, okay, got it, yep, that's there. And our society has kind of gotten to the point where we just gloss over things. We skim, and if you're skimming something, this is a pretty big transaction and a pretty big responsibility. And if we're skimming through something like that, a little bit of shame on me kind of thing, because we do you do need to be more diligent. And it's unfortunate that something as fun as getting a pet or adding a new family member, whether it's from a breeder or a rescue, has to be, you have to nitpick at the details on something like that. It's unfortunate that that's the case, but it is what it is.
Right.
So.
And we were talking about what to do if somebody finds himself a victim. You have to just block. Your money is probably gone. If you can get a refund, that's great. And hopefully you will be more diligent the next time. I have met people that were scammed 2 and 3 and 4 times, and usually it's the gambler mentality. And I know there might be some people here who play the slots or whatever. And the gambler's fallacy is the more times you play, you increase your chances of winning. And a lot of people play the lottery and they say, well, if I play every week, then it increases my chance. No, it doesn't. You have the same crappy chance every single time, and playing over and over again helps you very little. And but I find people using the gambler's mentality or the gambler's fallacy on parrots. They say, oh, well, come on, there's no way I'm going to find 2 scammers in a row or 3 scammers in a row. I'm telling you, you'll find 30 of them in a row if all you're doing is typing in parrots for adoption into Facebook and looking up pages. But it's the deal where people think if they're getting a bargain, maybe they can afford to lose that money. And I'm like, you're just helping the wrong team if you do that. You're sending money to the people we don't want to send money to. And there is I've done some research in some of these countries. When a hardworking man in some of these countries only makes $9,000 a year, I cannot fault them for finding something that can make them $1,000 a month with very little effort. When you're dealing with that kind of poverty, I absolutely understand them where they're coming from. However, we don't want to support it by throwing $100 here and $100 there, as if we're going to throw that money in eventually enough times that we're going to find a real person.
Yeah, it's so true. As far as resources, real quick, because this is so interesting. We've gone a little bit over. Resources for listeners, anywhere they can go to learn more about this. or is that I mean, you had put yourself out there as a resource, which thank you so very much.
There, and I've done a few videos. I did a video with Michael Saza and the Parrot Wizard. We did a couple of videos where we talked about scams and the anatomy of a scam. I did a video with Kit Rose. But yeah, you can do some research on scams. There are several videos. I think the best thing you can do for yourself is just to be very untrusting, distrusting as the default. You have to force people to prove who they are. And I know sometimes I know moderators and groups that say, oh, the picture looked good and the profile looked good, and I just let them into the group. I'm like, you can't trust either of those things. You can't trust pictures. You can't trust names. You can't trust videos. All those things are easily stolen. You have to be distrusting to the point that you find yourself, trying to think like an FBI agent sometimes. But the resources, the biggest resource I can give anyone is just to be very distrusting and really, depend on the breeders to show that they're so much different than the scammers when you do the video chat or when you talk to them in person or you talk to them over the phone. Even a simple phone call sometimes is enough to say, wow, that person was willing to talk to me on the phone and they gave me all this information and education about the parrots. That's simply amazing. And that's something that the scammers simply are not willing to do. So if you go into, if someone's watching this and they just want to go into it with the right mindset, I say be distrusting and then force people, really be discerning about who you're talking to and about how they sound. And I think you'll get through this okay. But yeah, it can be very dangerous when you first get started to know where all the walls are.
Well, absolutely. And thank you so much, Chris, for joining me tonight. I really do appreciate it. And I think, I know most of the people who listen on a regular basis are aware of what's going on, but I think that this, really may have opened some eyes a little bit more. So thank you very much. And keep keeping us safe. Okay.
Okay.
We
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Just so I can get it in the video. Sorry if I'm taking up too much time.
Oh, no worries.
I want to give my exact address so that when the clones pop up, people don't think they're me. My official address is facebook.com/chris.dooley3. Let me get it in the camera. 3. All the other Chris Dooleys are fake.
Aha. Interesting.
Yeah, make sure you're talking to the right Chris Dooley. So
nice. So they don't tell you, so they can't scam you on being scammed. That's kind of an interesting thing.
When I sent you a picture, I was like, well, I can't send a picture of me with a parrot. That's not going to work. But you're smart enough in the promotional pictures to sort of do writing all over the picture anyway. So I should have known you were smarter than the average bear. But
every now and then.
Yeah, every time I put anything out there, I'm just sort of expecting to see my picture on the next few scam accounts that I come across. So,
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, like I said, Chris.Dooley3 is my personal Facebook, and you're welcome to message me anytime. If you're about to send someone money and you're not sure, I would rather you message me and let me look things over than for you to lose your money. It's worth my time to do that, and I've saved a lot of people a lot of money over the years.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you. And just Nick, if you can pull that back up again, we've got an amazing conference coming up. The ASA conference is going to be in Tampa. Kind of a nice place to go. November, it might be starting to get cold where a lot of us are. Amazing conference to attend. I know some fabulous speakers. If you look at the speaker list there, it's going to be great. So that's something to look into, and you can scan. Well, that'll take you to the hotel, but you can register at the other QR code that's right there. And ASA, the Avicultural Society of America, you can find more information on their page. And they have conference information, and it's tiny, so I'm going to lean in. asabirds.org /2022-conference/. So that will give you more information there. If you want to go back, and listen to this again, because it was some amazing information. It was a lot of information. We are, bless you, we are on, the videos are always on the Leather Elves Facebook page. They're archived there, and they are also on YouTube. And next week, I have a fun guest coming on. It's Erin Smalley. And Erin and I are going to be talking about volunteering abroad, doing the right thing the right way. So that'll be kind of fun. And Sarah says they just approved a free flight demonstration on the 6th. More details to come for the ASA conference. So that's kind of cool. But you guys take care. Thank you again, Chris. You all have a wonderful week, and I will see you next Friday for Friday Night Flock Talk. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah.